I don't know if you're familiar with the parable of the starfish, the guy that's walking down the beach and picking up starfish and throwing them back into the water to save the starfish's life. And there's millions of starfish on the ground. And somebody asks, why are you doing this? You can't save them all, like it's not going to matter. And the guy picks up the one starfish. He says, it's going to matter to this one, and tosses him into the ocean. So I thought, through that concept, like maybe I could do this project or this contest called 15 Minutes of Fame, where I would, basically allow people to enter into this contest, and I would pick like an independent artist that would win every month, and I would then feature that person, and like the idea was to get everybody who participated to go and like take 15 minutes to go and listen to this person, stream this person so they can feel that little 15-minute bump of love, or whatever. Like if you wanted to spend a day listening to it, or if you wanted to move that, like put that person's music into your playlists and everything so that they would feel that little influx of appreciation for their art.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today we have an awesome guest. He's coming all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, and he is an independent recording artist. Please welcome to the podcast, Jeff Thomas. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's awesome to have you on the podcast. And to get started, can you share with us just a bit about the music that you're creating at the moment?
Absolutely. I would love to talk to you about that. I just released an album in January, January 16th. It's called Evaporate, and it is technically my second album, but I would say that it's kind of the first one that I've ever done properly. A very brief backstory of my time as a musician. I've released EPs before. 2011, I released my first EP, and then 2015, I released my second one. This was all after I was in a band, and the band kind of fizzled out, like right on the precipice of, maybe crossing over and trying to do some mainstream stuff. We kind of just fizzled out. It wasn't like this big bad breakup. It was just kind of we got exhausted. So after the band didn't work out, I started recording as an independent recording artist, and you know, I'm pretty small potatoes, so not a lot of people really knew who I was, and it didn't really pan out to anything. So after my second EP in 2015, I kind of hung it up a little bit. Until many years later, my kids started getting interested into music, and one of them in particular, my son Gavin, he had an interest in recording and making his own music. So as a way to kind of teach him and guide him into doing that stuff, I started playing around on my iPhone 12 in GarageBand, and I just started toying with some of these songs I'd written 20 years ago, and I was just recording them all on an iPad or iPhone. And before I knew it, I had, 11 songs that were just recorded, and the quality is about what you would think the quality for an album coming from an iPhone 12 through GarageBand sounds like. Was not great production value. At that point, I knew how to, mix down a track pretty well, but I didn't know a lot about, mastering and, condensing things to where it sounded great. So the final product that I released wasn't great, but I was proud of it because, again, it was all from one iPhone 12. Like the only thing that I used was like a little cheap podcast microphone that I would plug into it for doing vocal stuff. But everything else, like I was plugging directly, like every instrument that I played was being plugged directly into GarageBand through my iPhone. Um, so it's kind of neat to go through that process and realize that you could do that as simply as you could. But I was using recycled songs that I didn't really connect with anymore because, 20 years later, like I'm a 40-year-old singing songs that a 20-year-old wrote. It wasn't I don't feel like it wasn't translating so well. So it was just really just kind of, I would say it felt like a school project, like just something like, can you do this? There wasn't a lot of emotion invested into my first album. I am proud of it. I know it doesn't sound like I am, but I'm just being honest with, what that product was. What it did do, though, was it did get the creative juices going for me, and I started writing music, something I hadn't done in years. And singing, playing instruments, I had also kind of packed all of that away, hadn't been doing it for a very long time. And as I started working on De No Ma, which is the first album, I started kind of honing in on, some of my skill sets and like kind of getting my chops back a little bit. And also writing new songs, new material, things that were applicable to me in my life today. I ended up coming up with a new album, and this time I decided to kind of do it properly. And it was a bit of a challenge from beginning to end. I don't make music or I don't make money as a musician. This is purely a hobby of mine. So finding the time to record around my career that I'm also very much invested in. I work in finance, and I'm trying to obtain licenses to further my career. Finding the time to work on making music, it wasn't really a priority for me, so it turned the project into a little bit of a longer stint of like from the writing to the recording and everything. And I was wanting to actually take time and make sure that this was done correctly. So it took from when I released De No Ma in May of 2023. um, it took all of, I released Evaporate January 16 of this year, so 2026. That's 2.5 years of, like I ended up writing 60 songs in all, and the album only has nine songs on it. So like it was just kind of like this trial and error thing and trying to figure out what this album was, like I'm historically speaking, like I would say that I'm a very cinematic, anthemic, like a lot of anthems, a lot of big finished songs and everything. And with Evaporate, I wanted to kind of like veer away from that and see if I could accomplish some of the same things by a minimalist approach. So I was like really trying to strip some stuff back. And so some of these songs that I wrote, I thought were really good songs, but they might be like big finish songs. And I ended up uh, pulling them from the album because I just didn't think that it wasn't encompassing the idea of the project. So, long story short was there's a lot of really great stuff that came from these 2.5 years writing and, just composing this music to coming up with this very unified album, Evaporate, which is, to me, I feel like this is the proudest I've ever felt of anything I've ever done in my life musically. And I've been a musician for a very long time. And I have worked in music before. I've done a lot of stuff involved with music. It's just not where my career ended up. But for a long time, it was the goal, So I don't know if that necessarily, I kind of rambled in answering that question, but yeah, the album is it's a it's a story about me, and it's about coming to terms with my own mortality. It's about people who I have had uh different kinds of relationships with. For instance, I lost my father in 2019, and there's a song in there about him and my father's in my relationship. For whatever reason, it worked. It maybe it shouldn't have. He was my dad. A lot of people might have harsh criticisms of who he was, but and I see where the criticism comes from, but he was, in my eyes, he was a good guy. He tried his hardest, and he fought his demons. He may have lost, but he fought them, and I think I have a lot of respect for that in retrospect to now that he's not here, versus when he was around, it was a little bit more difficult to forgive that stuff. But now that he's not here, you kind of look back and you have a lot more of an appreciation for who he was, now that he's gone, And that's just an example of somebody who, is on the album. There's, I wrote songs about a bunch of different people, but that was just, kind of what I'm talking about there, I guess.
But for those who haven't listened to your music, can you describe the genre, the sound, all of that?
Sure. Yeah. Uh, m the genre is, if you were to basically look at one overall thing that encompasses everything that I've done from beginning to end, it would probably fall into like an alternative category. Like some albums and like Denoma, for instance, and my second EP, which is called Internal Conflicts. That would probably fall more into the category of like alternative rock. Whereas Evaporate and my first EP, The Madness, I would say that they are more alt folk and maybe Americana.
Mm.
With Evaporate, I think being the one that bridges those two mostly. Like Evaporate would be like an indie folk, and alt rock amalgamation of everything. Like there's a lot of organics. I played most of the instruments. There was one person who played additional instruments on some. No, that's not true either. There was a couple people that played different instruments at one time or another. And But they're all organic. There's very little programming, and the the small bit amount of programming that's taking place is just all percussion. Um, Zero AI. I never use AI in my work. But like it was I was using banjos. I played a mandolin, banjo. I actually had my mother play the cello. She's a professional cellist. Andrea Smith, she's featured on the fifth song of the album, and she plays the cello on there. A couple different people played the drums, and then I played bass, acoustic, 12 string. Just different guitars, and then of course the banjo and mandolin, as I mentioned, as and I also did the programming for the drums and the 30 some odd different vocal parts that you hear. And then For the last song on the album, I actually feature a spoken word poet and a hip hop artist, a rapper out of Florida by the name of UDK, and the spoken word poet, his name is Circumstantial Saint, and he's out of Pennsylvania. So um, with it being indie folk and alt rock, there's definitely some experimentation with a bunch of different genres. But if you were to try and kind of catch it all, I would say Evaporate is indie folk, alt folk, indie folk, like somewhere in that.
Cool. So
Yeah.
something that I like to do on the podcast is, of course, explore the projects and works of each guest. But something that I love to do is to get to know the person behind the
Sure.
art. So my next question for you is, What sparked your love for music?
Oh wow. You could kind of go back to a lot of things. So both of my parents were musicians. My mother, she's a professional musician, as I stated, like she plays the cello professionally. She's also been a music educator for decades, since I was born, so 40 or more years. My dad, he was the world's biggest country fan, and he loved the most traditional of country music. He was a big Elvis Presley fan, but he loved Johnny Cash.
Mm.
He loved Hank Williams Sr. He loved that old traditional, almost like on the verge of like a gospel
Yeah.
um like genre or style of country music that kind of blended into what became like the secular country music from like the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. Um he uh he was a songwriter, and we actually moved from North Carolina to Tennessee so that he could pursue songwriting. He wanted to, cut one record, and I'm very proud of him to say that before he passed, he ended up having just one, but he did get that one cut, and a guy named TJ Nelson a few years ago cut one of his songs. It was called More Than Anything, and he featured it on his album. But both of my parents were very heavy into music. In addition to playing classical cello and, having a love for classical music, my mom was a diehard Beatles fan, and she loved like the Mamas and the Papas and different things like that. And I personally I would say so I started playing violin when I was 3 years old. That was my first instrument, and I kind of started picking up country music because that was such a big thing for my dad when I was a child. As I moved into my adolescent years, I kind of touched on everything. I started out as an R&B fan. I really loved Motown. I loved Boyz II Men and All for One, and groups like that in the early '90s that were kind of pulling Motown back into more contemporary style. And then that kind of morphed into a love for hip hop. Like I really loved Bone Thugs and Harmony. I loved Nas, Tupac, Dr. Dre, like all the stuff that was really big in the mid to late '90s. And then I was very into religion when I was in high school. So I started listening to Christian alternative bands like Jars of Clay and, things like that. And then one day I discovered the band Live, and that kind of morphed into, like my love for, secular rock music. And then after I found Radiohead, it was over from there. Radiohead for a very long time was my favorite band. And, from there, I've just always been very drawn to rock music. But there's always been like this pull back to, the organics. So, I mean, I don't know if I can cite one place where my love for music came from. It's just been such a strong and impactful thing. And, I wrote my first song when I was a senior in high school, and um, it was, a very acoustic song, very ballady type of song. And I think I have always been interested in blending all of my interests in music into one sound. So that's kind of why it was difficult to answer the question for what the genre of music is that I play, because it really it changes, like it's kind of just, what I am, it's not I don't try to, write rock songs, I just come up with, what feels the most honest to me internally, and that's what comes out. And I think that's why
why and where my love for music came from is just it's just always been a part of me, you know.
Mhm. And you have two albums. Would you say that if I were to listen to each one, does it have like is it a completely different sound, would you say?
Completely different sound. So Dano Ma is primarily a programmed, like I did it all on this mobile app. Like even the piano playing, like I actually programmed the piano notes individually versus playing a piano. It's so Dano Ma has a very um electric sound. You could honestly even say like there's like an infusion of techno. It's very alt rock driven, but it's there's almost some like techno and like Daft Punk influence into what's going on there. A lot of of course Radiohead influence. Whereas Evaporate, there's very, very, very little programming on that album. Everything that's played on there, I probably played 80 to 85% of the instruments, and it's all organic. I didn't even actually play any electric guitar on that album. It was all acoustic electric, acoustic electric 12 string. I did play an electric bass for for most of the work and everything, but it was very, very driven towards that folk sound that I was really trying to go for. On my EPK, I in fact said, that I wanted to kind of go back to my roots. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm a Southern guy. I maybe that means something to a lot of people, but it's something different to me. Like I'm a very, very, very liberal person. I'm also an atheist, which is, like I grew up religious, and that study and that passion for religion is actually what led me to coming to terms with the fact that I'm an atheist, just because I guess you could say I went so far down the rabbit hole that I, discovered uh, that I believe that, a lot of it is, you know, man-made delusion kind of, but, that's different for everybody else. And I actually admire people who are uh, religious still to this day. They just have something that I never could grasp, which was why I studied it so hard, was I was never able to identify with having faith. Just even when I was more religiously strong, like I just didn't understand that concept. The, seeing without or the believing without seeing concept, I just couldn't grasp it. So I I'm not your typical Southern person, but I'm still the South is rooted within me, like I still like to get out in the garden and, work. I still, I have a Southern accent. I'm a guy that's gonna say, "Hey y'all," like things like that. So
Do you ever say bless your heart or like
Oh, yeah, like or Lord have mercy, things all that, like so it's just like the kind of like, I wouldn't say it's hypocritical, but I would say that, like I definitely have a vernacular for the slang down here. Lord have mercy, bless your heart, like yeah, all that stuff. If somebody sneezes, I say God bless you, just all that good stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, so when I started sending my EPK out to people, for different press appearances and stuff, like I basically kind of headlined everything, the promotion for this album. I was like, you know, this is I'm not a country musician, but like this is my attempt at making a country album, if that makes sense. So it's not a country album, but it's my interpretation of if I were to try to make a country album, this is what it would sound like, and that's kind of how it
came. So
So, so I know this is a hobby, but you're taking this hobby very seriously. Do you see yourself making a music video? Have you made a music video? Do you perform in public? How's that going?
so I have made one music video, and it's actually I haven't posted it on my YouTube page yet. I'm going to. The plan is I want to release. There's one song on the album that I'm going to be releasing as a single because now that the album is out, I want some of the songs to kind of have their own, like respective time to, be heard. And I have a love for every single song on this album, but there's one in particular that when I wrote it and it came out, like I had all these ideas in my head. And as a songwriter, one of the most difficult things to do is, let that translate from here to, final press and like what that last cut sounds like. It might not sound like what it sounded like in here at first. And that was not the case. Like my song Skip to the Part freaking like I swear the first demo I laid down of it, it was almost perfect to, where I wanted it to be. And, like between the demo and, the final version, which is on the album, is there's not much difference to be honest. Like it all connected. So I ended up just in all of my stuff, like it's all DIY, I don't
Mhm.
invest a lot of money into this. I can't, like I don't have just like thousands of dollars to burn on doing all this stuff. So like the music video that was released for Skip to the Part, or that's going to officially be released when the single comes out in a month or so, is it was all done on, like an iPhone using the HD camera and everything. And my producer, who the guy who actually produced the album, his name's Daniel Grigson. He has dabbled in in music professionally, and he's had some success as a musician, and he's also very tech savvy, so he does a lot of like video work and everything. He took the raw cuts of the stuff that I recorded, and he actually edited and kind of directed the music video for this. So it's kind of his baby as much as it is mine. And you can kind of say that about the album too. Like this album wouldn't have sounded the way that it sounds without Daniel Grigson and Necco Records kind of, taking control of the production and publication of the album. But yeah, there is one music video. It is technically posted on YouTube on Daniel's YouTube profile, and I can send you a link to that. But it's not really officially been released until the single comes out, which I think is the single is going to be out in the beginning of April. So that's
Oh,
when we're looking for that. So yeah.
okay. My next question for you is, what comes more naturally? Is it the writing, the lyrics, or is it the making of the sound?
Yeah, so that is an interesting question because my entire life it's always been the music. Always been the music. Like I've always been a writer first. In fact, as a fan of music, I generally have a difficult time hearing the lyrics because I can't get past the melody that I'm listening to, and I can I can tell you everything there is to know about the melody of a song. I can tell you what instruments are being played, like usually within the first or second listen. I can tell you everything, even the stuff, the subtle things in the background. Like I will memorize all that stuff, but I won't be able to cite one lyric of the song for you. And this is something that, I will have been a fan of a song for 20 years and I might not know like three of the lines in the song and stuff. So I have always been a composer first and like I just kind of throw in lyrics. I would say like especially with my earlier stuff and in my band days, I don't know if I was even that good of a songwriter. Like I didn't identify with personalizing lyrics when I was younger. I would actually form lyrics around maybe a movie that I really liked, or um, like I would try to like really go hard on finding analogies, and I wanted to be creative as a lyricist, but I didn't know how to necessarily. Um, but when I started writing again for Evaporate in my 40s, and it all just as I was working on De No Ma, I started getting these ideas lyrically for songs, but I wasn't actually sitting down with the guitar and working on them. I was just writing lyrics. You could essentially just call them poems at that point. I was just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And I just, like I said, I came up with about 60 songs that, I just have these completed lyrics for. And for the first time in my entire life, I was a lyric first musician, and I have to say it was in a lot of ways it was more difficult because trying to plug the melody into fitting in with the lyrics, there was a lot of rewriting that was taking place, and like you just like you found out like the timbre didn't quite match,
Mhm.
what you wrote, or like like there was a lot of stuff like you kind of scrap a lot of it, or you find out like wow, there needs to be a lot more content here for this all to make sense into the melody, so you end up like trying to fill all these holes in the songs and everything. So like it was, and then I think when you do that too, you kind of lose some of the integrity of like that initial creation, whereas like when you have that melody in mind and it comes together, there's not a lot of tweaking there. So then all you have to do is just kind of, you find the melody that you want to do and you sound it out and you just find the lyrics that go into that. Like I think that process is a little bit faster than, like you have lyrics and you're trying to match melodies to go with them. Like there's a lot of plug and play in that. But yeah, so I've technically done both ways now though. My favorite is to write the melody first, but it was a interesting challenge to do the lyrics first for Evaporate. And ironically, this is my favorite project that I've ever done. So like maybe there's something to putting in that extra effort, to make that right.
And a brief while ago, you were saying that the music video is going to come out, I think, in April, correct?
Probably beginning of
Uh,
April, yeah.
Is a song already available to listen to on other
Yeah,
platforms?
so yeah, the song itself, it's called Skip to the Part. It's part of the album, and the album released on January 16th, and it's available on every streaming platform. It's also for any of the vintage folks, like I do have it available on vinyl. You can purchase it through my website, or if you frequent Bandcamp, you can go check that out. And the vinyl is available for purchase on Bandcamp, as well as the digital and streaming options are available for purchase on Bandcamp. Or you can just if you are if you listen to Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, anything like that, yeah, you can listen to the entire album on any one of those platforms.
So all I gotta do is say, "Hey Alexa, play Jeff Thomas." That's it.
Yep, and it should pop right up.
Well, thank you for sharing about your musical journey because we've certainly seen your evolution and also the inspirations that you've had surrounding you throughout the years, as well as
Yeah.
the struggles that you've gone through. But now I wanted to inform the audience that there's more to you than just making music. There's also a podcasty platform that you have. Can you tell us the name of this and what it entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So um I in kind of rediscovering my passion for making music as an independent artist, I started, trying to network and promote my music through social media and discovering, that I had absolutely no pull, like I at one point, like when I first started, had the idea of releasing Dano Ma, I had maybe 100, followers across every platform that I was on, like TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, everything you name it. And I didn't really, I wasn't a poster either. Like that wasn't a thing that I did. So it was just kind of, I was definitely a novice, and it was new to me to try and, reach out to people and connect. But what I did discover, particularly on Threads, was that there were a lot of independent musicians who had the same struggle, like trying to promote their music. And it was just kind of like, this great big echo chamber of, you know, everybody was promoting, nobody was really listening to anybody else and stuff like that. So I started trying to dabble with these different ways of, like paying it forward, trying to, you know, in promoting my own stuff. Like I was like, look, I also am interested in what you guys are doing as well too. Like I'd love to listen. So the first thing I started to do on Threads was I would, just reach out and be like, hey, would anybody be interested in having their music featured on a playlist? And so I started like curating playlists on Spotify, and that was great. But what I quickly learned was people were, most of the response that you get, people will share a link. They're like, yeah, throw my song on a playlist, but then they don't go back and listen to the playlist, and, like they don't really care about what happens to it then. So it was just kind of like, it didn't really amount to anything. Nobody was listening to all the artists' music on there. Nobody was listening to it except for me, really. I was listening to it, but um so then I was like, what's a different way I can connect to people? And so I came up with this idea for a contest where I was hoping that, like what maybe I could like lift one person at a time. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the parable of the starfish, the guy that's walking down the beach and picking up starfish and throwing them back into the water to save the starfish's life. And there's millions of starfish on the ground. And somebody asks, why are you doing this? You can't save them all, like, it's not going to matter. And the guy picks up the one starfish. He says, it's going to matter to this one, and tosses him into the ocean. So I thought, through that concept, like maybe I could do this project or this contest called 15 Minutes of Fame, where I would, basically allow people to enter into this contest, and I would pick like an independent artist that would win every month, and I would then feature that person. And like the idea was to get everybody who participated to go and like take 15 minutes to go and listen to this person, stream this person, so they can feel that little 15-minute bump of love, or whatever. Like if you wanted to spend a day listening to it, or if you wanted to move that, like put that person's music into your playlists and everything, so that they would feel that little influx of appreciation for their art. And I did that, and a lot of people again wanted to participate in submitting their music. And I picked a winner, this guy named Luis G from New Mexico. I picked his song, and uh, I, did a post about, hey, like, let's go give Luis some love, and everything like that. Well, nobody wanted to go and, listen to his stuff after that. They just wanted to submit their own music once again. So once again, I kind of found myself in a place where, I'm not reaching people the way that I wanted to. So I remember reading a review of a musician in July of 2024, and I was like, man, like it'd be great, if there was like a way that, like I could have my music reviewed, or, like some of these artists could have their music reviewed. And then I just thought, like, why don't I do it? So I in July of 2024, I officially launched my platform, 15 Minutes of Fame. And again, I had, you know,
n no presence on social media. But when I started offering free reviews for musicians, that actually did start to kind of get the attention of people. And I was getting a lot of submissions, and people were reacting to the reviews, and people were reading the reviews. And I started on a blog app, and I did that for a few months until I launched a website. And since that time, my social media presence has, grown tenfold. Like I went from hundreds of followers to thousands of followers across all of my platforms, and people really engage in the reviews for artists, and the artists are generally like very pleased with everything because they come back and like I get a lot of people who are repeat repetitively submitting music to be featured on their platforms or on the platform, and it's really cool because it's something that I think everybody can relate to, like, this calling to want to be heard. Like, I think that this is a thing where people are actually seeing, like, oh wow, people are listening to my music. People are discovering me because they're reading these reviews, or, I do blind reactions to music videos on YouTube, and I conduct interviews very similar to this, with artists as well too. And like people are engaging with that stuff. So every day it's growing. It's not a fast process, like it's not something that's, happening overnight, and that's fine. But it's also a way of being able to promote independent musicians and do it in a way that's not harmful to their own brand. There's a lot of people out there who just, want to make money off of independent musicians. So, a lot of people offer to write reviews, but the artist has to pay for them.
Mm.
That's not what I do. So everything that 15 Minutes of Fame does, as musicians, as far as like promoting musicians, I do that solely for free to the artist. Like there's nothing that costs, none of the the features for the platform, the blind reactions, the reviews, the interviews, the podcasts that I'm getting ready to launch. It's all free to the musicians. The only thing that I try to do, as far as like by way of making money, for 15 Minutes of Fame is I have one piece of merchandise. It's the platform's. I sell stickers for the platform. They're $4. And it's just kind of a way to like help kind of fund the little things. Like the website isn't free, of course. So like just to kind of, I'm not looking to profit from my work with 15 Minutes of Fame. I am just looking for something that sustains it, and that's what the merchandise does. So that's kind of what 15 Minutes of Fame is for me. Is it's really kind of a glorified hobby. I love music, and I love listening to music. I love discovering new artists, and 15 Minutes of Fame gives me an opportunity to do that.
And where can people get their 15 minutes of fame sticker?
Yes. So my platform, there's a website. It's fmofmusicentertainment.com. And there's a store there that actually, there's a store tab there that links to my music website, jeffthomasmusic.com, where you can purchase the vinyl, and you can also purchase the 15 Minutes of Fame stickers there as well too. So the link from the 15 Minutes of Fame website, though, it goes directly to the stickers. So if you click on that link in the store there, you will be able to purchase the stickers. So
All
yeah.
right. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing your musical journey as well as the all the work that you've been doing outside of music with your platform. And to the audience, hey, go check out his websites, his YouTube, get some stickers. And I have just a couple closing questions. Are you ready?
Sure. Actually, can we cut really fast? I'm super sorry. I yeah, we're ready to go.
So, just to close off, I have a couple more questions. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, my first question is: Are there Are there any other upcoming artists out there whom you suggest we keep an eye out for?
Absolutely. I have a few of them, honestly. So there's one person who I've been writing a couple, like it's a been a special edition feature for her upcoming music. Her album is actually coming out next week. Her name is Ellie Case, and that's Kace, Ellie Case, and her album is called The Seventh Gate. This will be her third album that she's released. What's very interesting about her is she's actually a world-renowned opera singer,
Hmm.
but she has found a love and a passion for popular music. So she is actually kind of inventing a new genre of music. She's calling it Baroque pop,
Okay.
like the Baroque period, you know? And it's this blend of, I mean, really, she touches so many different genres of music. The band that she typically plays with, they're very affluent in jazz music, but they're playing a lot of classically themed things. There's a touch of influence of jazz within the music that she performs, but then it's also very keen to classical, Renaissance, Baroque, uh, eras of music, and then also very ambient, like almost some of like the techno and aesthetic things. Like I would say she sounds very similar to like Love Delirium. Um, I think that she's had like some more contemporary artists like I would say some of what Tori Amos has done in some of her more recent work, and just like there's really all kinds of influences. Like I would even say like there's just things like like the Hindu the vocal the Gothic chanters that do like the really cool things. Like she does similar things with her voice and that sometimes. It's some of the most fascinating music that I've ever heard in my entire life. Her album, it's March 3rd, I believe. She's also a sound healer and she's like a yoga instructor too. So she's a very eclectic person. That album is, I've heard it. It's very good. If that sounds like something that's interesting to your listeners, like you will not be disappointed with Ellie Case. Her previous two albums are out as well too, and they're fantastic. I first discovered her when she released an EP back in 2024. It was called if I a- I think if I ask, could you love me? I might be wrong on that the EP title, but it was her EP. It came out in 2024, and it's brilliant. Um, just she's a phenomenal musician. There's zero skips on this album. It's going to be a hit for anybody that listens to it. Also, another musician that is putting out an album this year, Lexi Modica. They are they also kind of encompass a multitude of different genres. Like we're talking like classic, like 50s, 60s rock style music sometimes to like alt folk. They were classically trained in college as well too. Just very interesting. I have recently reviewed some newer artists. Circumstantial Saint, who is actually featured on my album, he released an album this month called Black History Volume 4. He this guy, I don't know how he does it. He produces so much music. This guy's probably released 20 or more albums. But he's very good, very gifted. Um, I don't think that you know there's a person in the world that wouldn't be interested in how he's very politically active in the music that he writes. Is just very he's very good. I would highly encourage anybody who's interested in finding like some good independent musicians to check out fmofmusicentertainment.com and just go read some of those reviews. I link a bunch of media along with, there's an opportunity to listen to every single one of the artists. I link their Spotify um, profiles to every single one of those reviews. So you can actually, while you're reading the review, you can just click on their music and listen to it. If there is a music video on YouTube, you can also you can watch the music video from the platform, the 15 Minutes of Fame platform. It's embedded within the articles. You can watch the videos or live performances. There are a multitude of, I've featured more than 200 artists in my 2 years of doing this, and I've covered artists over 6 continents, more than 30 countries, and 40 of the 50 states in the United States of America. So there are artists for everybody on that platform, and there's a connection to every single genre that's been out there. I've even had I reviewed an artist earlier this month who's an Academy Award winner for his sound design for a short animated film. So he's got an Oscar, but like he's also a very accomplished jazz musician as well too. There's a ton of different musicians that you can learn about. In the if you're in the market to discover new independent music that you should be listening to, definitely check the platform out. But Ellie Case, her album's out next week, and Lexi Modica, they are going to be releasing their album later on this year as well too.
Awesome. Now for the final question, Jeff, why is creativity important for you?
Oh man, where would we be as a society without creativity? I think I think creativity, whatever form that is, I think that's just it's almost like our therapy. It's our way of, maybe it's a coping mechanism at times. Maybe it's a way of being able to articulate something that we can't just say. When I was younger, I used to, in addition to being a musician, I used to try to get work in musical theater as well too. And there was a director of mine who he worked on Broadway. He had a tenure on Broadway, performing in the musical production of Annie. He was Daddy Warbucks,
Hmm.
and he would tell this story from time to time of this director who would say to people, singing is what we do when words simply can't convey how we feel. And that always just resonated with me because I kind of get it, like there's more to music than just having a conversation like you and I are having today. Like I this album Evaporate, I think is kind of a perfect example of that because right from the beginning, like the first song is actually called We Evaporate, and it talks about, identifying our own mortality and everything. And there's just like this solemn tone to it that, like if I were just to tell you the lyrics of the song, like that might not come across, it would be a little stale. But when you hear it played through the melody of the song, like it gives it a body it didn't have before. And then the next song, it's called Beattyville, Kentucky. And that one is about in the mid 2000s, I worked for a company called Appalachia Service Project, a nonprofit. And it was emergency home repair service for people who couldn't afford home repairs in the Appalachia region of the United States of America. And that company was founded by a Methodist minister. And I was very much at that time questioning my own religion. And I think it was kind of in those moments of really seeing the limitations in our potential and how flawed we were as people, that I really started to kind of recognize like that I don't think that there's anybody out there helping us. And that song really is about coming to terms, kind of coming to terms with that. And I don't think, just saying it like what does that do, but when like I came up with the melody behind it and it's got this very powerful vocal resolution at the end of the song where all these vocals just kind of come in together and it's just a very moving thing and it's just got this big build. Like the main question, the chorus of that song is talking about like if it's just us, like wouldn't that kind of be great, in a way. And so I think creatively the music behind that has a resounding effect versus just simply, saying that, like in our awkwardness, like artists are introverted people by nature, and we're very afraid of, like expressing ourselves. But if you put us behind a guitar and you put us, you put a paintbrush in our hands or something like that, like that awkwardness, that timidness that goes away, we're able to just kind of lose ourselves in that. And I think that's why creativity is important. It allows us to express ourselves in a way that maybe we didn't have the confidence to do otherwise.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your love for music and for the creations that you've made. To the audience, please go check out Jeff Thomas and also check out the 15 Minutes of Fame. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, give it a follow, give it some nice reviews if you'd like. And if you would like to if you would like to help me out a little bit further, you may do so by buying me a coffee. As you know, I love coffee, so you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/truth that H7. All of your contributions help me to keep this podcast going. And to Jeff, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, I was happy to do it, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. And I love what you're doing. And thank you for, being a platform for, independent creatives like myself to come and talk about our work.